Good morning, beautiful. It's not even the morning, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I did say I was going to do a follow-up video, Q&A style to the video I put out a few weeks ago. You know, owning where I'd been, why I had to leave, that I was suffering from addiction, that I'm now in recovery. If you've seen the video, you know what I mean. I feel like I left a lot of unanswered questions in that. Didn't get to explain half as much as I wanted to. I think this video might change the way you think about addiction drastically, actually, especially if you're someone that hasn't experienced it yourself. Maybe even if you are someone that's experienced it yourself, because I think from seeing it from this perspective that I do now, with this understanding that I have, and also the different ways in which addiction is started, thank God, to be treated, which in my opinion is the right way because it targets the root cause. So I'm going to talk about some of that in this video, and I really do hope and think it will change the way that you think of addiction, not in terms of like maybe you have a negative perception and then you have a positive one, but like just that you'll understand really where it comes from, and it's not just about, you know, people being hooked, people being party animals, people being irresponsible. There really is a much deeper root cause, and there are ways of working on that which do not just include talking to a therapist. So yeah, on Instagram I asked you guys just to basically ask me anything about the situation that you want me to address or talk about, answer more clearly. Usually when I do Q&As I answer about 4,000 questions and drive myself insane. Drive myself insane? I am insane, but just more on the insane spectrum. Does that make sense? So what I've done is I've chosen the 5 most popular asked questions that I got from Instagram, and I'm going to answer them in detail as well. But before we get into that, I just want to say it is really amazing how the treatment of addiction is gradually starting to shift in the best way possible, because in certain rehabilitation or addiction places, you know, they're not just working on the removal of the substance. They really are looking at the root cause of what caused it. And of course you could always say, you know, these people are struggling from depression, or they could be struggling for anxiety. They could be put on antidepressants for that, which I know was common practice in the past. The root cause of addiction in most cases is trauma. In most of the cases that I've seen, it's usually severe childhood trauma, which then can manifest in many different things. But addiction is just one of them, because especially for people that have a very dysregulated nervous system, I mean, trauma itself can lead to a very dysregulated nervous system, which can then lead to addiction because you feel the need to fix something that feels wrong within your body. For me, it was always kind of like, oh, you know, I'm just a nervous person. I just need to take sedatives, you know? It wasn't like, you know, I experienced these, to be honest, heinous crimes against me as a child and a teen, that's why I'm so prone towards taking things that make me not feel. I mean, it is pretty obvious when you think about it, but trauma is not just something that you can leave in the past and be like, yeah, I was traumatized, and now I'm not. You know, I went to rehab and came off stuff and now I'm not traumatized. It doesn't work like that. Trauma is trapped within the body. You will never heal trauma-induced addiction through just talking therapy. I had therapy whilst I was on this channel for a couple years, like in the beginning. And that therapy was just talking and just like, how can you manage the situation better coping skills, it was just very surface level stuff, you know? To think of addiction in that way is just so basic, really, just so basic and so nonsensical to think that it just comes out of wanting to take things to not feel, and it ends there. And if you're able to put in better practices and change your thought processes, that it's not going to be a problem anymore. That's absolutely. Or if you just talk and let your feelings out, that it might just resolve what's going on. Not the case at all. People will never understand how. You probably know people that this is going to lead into the first question of how I hid it for so long. But you probably know people that you know well, and you think you know well, and you could probably bet your life that they're not addicted to things. But I bet you there are many people around you that are in denial, or maybe not in denial and just very, very good at hiding it. Maybe you've never known them in a different way. All I'm saying is there are so many successful, high-functioning addicts in this world, and it scares me. And I'm learning more and more about this, meeting more and more people with this. You know, I even met one person who works for a huge news outlet that I mean, I don't watch the news anymore because we all know that it's just a puppet show. It was a big news station, and it was the head of the news station, and they were someone I met that was taking a very strong substance that you snort up your nose. I was kind of like, but how did you get away with that? Like, how did you, in that job, with that responsibility, with putting that out to millions, billions of people, how did you get away with that addiction? And she basically just turned around and said, Miles, everyone in the whole fucking office is also snorting that substance up their nose. And that's the way we function here. That really made me realize, like, wow, this is actually a lot more common than even I thought, knowing the amount of high-functioning addicts that I do. Maybe that's also why nothing on the news makes sense and is true anymore, because everyone that's creating it is on drugs, but we won't go there. I really want to talk about the pain thing first, because it's something that I'm really excited to talk about. But the most commonly asked question, like literally hundreds of you ask, how did I manage to hide it for so long? Obviously I didn't hide it from Jill, and couldn't have hidden. To be honest, could I have? The thing is, all addicts are such good manipulators and will do anything to get their fix that if I really tried, maybe I could have. Do you know what? I'm just realizing that that's such a lie, because the substance that I was taking, Jesus, I'm gonna get really real here. It affects when you can and can't get boners. So I think Jill would have kind of worked it out that I was taking something. Now that, yeah. That's what Kratom does to you guys, and any other guy that you speak to that has been taking Kratom recreationally and being like, oh yeah, it's so cool, you get euphoric, you feel high. Yeah, but you also, after consuming it, for 2 hours afterwards can't have sex because it lowers your testosterone so much, you have a plunge 2 hours after taking it, that no matter how aroused you are mentally, you cannot maintain a full boner. And I can't believe that I just talked about that on camera, but it is a fact. Also, she's freakishly, like, non-human and psychic, so I think she just would have known anyway. How did I hide it from everyone else in my life? I mean, the thing is, all of my friends have always known that I have a history with addiction from a very young age. It was not a constant thing. There were obviously times of using and abusing things and times of being in a better place. The thing that I started abusing at a very young age was Valium, as in diazepam, and other benzodiazepines, just to not feel again, because I had not even began to address or acknowledge the trauma that I had been through, that the only way to actually push through life was to not feel it, because if I was open to it, it would have hit me like a train, and it was too overwhelming. I had no support at the time. And the thing with, see, this is where my mind has turned into a sieve. I have no idea where I was going with that. Hold on. Hold on. So, number one, all of my friends knew that. However, even when, and you will have seen my vlogs from when I was traveling with some of my best friends in the past, some of who are still my best friends and part of my family today, and not all of, because when you go through something like this, again, you really find out who your real friends are. And I hid it from all of them when we were traveling, when we were in Bali, when we were in Austria, when we were in LA, when we were in Cornwall, when we were in other places, wherever we were, I always found a way to still use stuff. And it wasn't Kratom at the time. That was only when I started suffering with pain like a year and a half ago. But the years leading up to that, I was still constantly, and this might shock you because I always have way too much energy. That's my problem. I mean, it's not my only problem, but you know what I mean. I was still taking sedatives, and when I was traveling, I was taking them with me. And you know, and at times I was also sharing a room or even a bed with one of my friends, and doing everything together, you know, waking up together, going to the gym together, vlogging together, filming together, taking pictures together, eating together, going to bed together. When you are an addict, and when you know that that substance is kind of like your safety net, you will do anything and everything to hide it in a way that I can't even describe how I hid it, because I just intuitively knew that this was something that I needed for my own personal protection at the time. No matter where we were, no matter what country we were in, I always found a way to take sedatives with me. Not only that, but I also found a way to consume them without any of my friends realizing. None of them realized. Not even my best friend Anna, who is like, we're still basically attached at the hip. You know, we tell each other like everything, like literally everything. Like if I need to go and take a piss after this video, I will probably tell her. Don't want to call it a master of manipulation, because that sounds really bad and like I'm manipulative in other ways in life, which I hope to God I'm not, and well, I know I'm not. With addiction, I think if you're going to maintain it without other people knowing, then you have to be a manipulator, otherwise, because you are manipulating situations to make it look like you're sober when you're not. So whether that meant like, you know, pretending to go for a piss and quickly swallowing something, or and also building up a tolerance over so many years that people wouldn't really notice the difference between when I was on stuff and not on stuff, or taking more of something or less of something. You know, when you're exuding to other people in your own energy, everything's fine. You know, I'm not struggling with anything, because you've convinced yourself of that everything is okay, and you're justifying it to yourself as well. It's very hard for other people to pick up on unless they are extremely receptive. Not something I'm proud of at all. I'm also not angry with myself, because I know during that time it was before I had begun to address any of my trauma. So without those substances, what I would have done to myself with all of those overwhelming feelings and no idea of how to regulate them. Even people that I was opening up to about being, you know, an addict and really struggling with it at certain times, again, they had no idea when I was actually doing it. How did the substances that I was taking affect my body, both physically and mentally? So physically, I've already talked about this. Like, it definitely, you know, left me feeling nauseous, left me feeling like I was on a roller coaster. At times I was feeling euphoric, then I would have a massive plunge. Obviously I lost a lot of weight, a lot of body fat, because again, the main substance that I was taking was not only an opiate, it was also a stimulant. The most significant change within me whilst abusing opiates and kratom, I was just erratic. I was all over the place. I was on a constant roller coaster. You know, there was no stability. And again, God bless Jill for putting, I laugh because I have to laugh or I will cry. I don't know if I could have with myself. I was an erratic ocean roller coaster. And also I had very bad problems with anger, which I've never had before. That's a lie, I have had before, because when I was in tennis, I think I had the record for smashing the most amount of rackets in 1 year. I think when I was 17 or 18, I smashed about 47 tennis rackets. And my sponsor, Wilson, at the time, didn't even drop me. I don't know, I guess I was apparently that valuable that I could smash as many expensive tennis rackets as possible, and they would just send me more and more. But I'm not proud of that. But all I'm saying is I had a lot of anger even at that age. Whilst I was on kratom especially, and other people that have experience with kratom have said the exact same thing, the rage and the anger that can come is, I don't want to say it's like similar to being on steroids or testosterone. You know, men on that experience that kind of rage, but that's from too much testosterone. Like I said, when you take kratom, it actually lowers your testosterone, not long term, as in my levels are completely normal now, but, and they also were then, but they just make it dip for a little bit, for a couple of hours after consumption. So it's not the testosterone thing, but there is something about the substance that makes you very reactive, oh my god. I was about to say erratic and reactive. We just created a new word. So it made me very erratic and angry. I don't want to go into too much detail. I mean, I'm not a violent person. I've never been a violent person. I've never, it never led to any kind of violence or anything like that with me or friends or anyone. But it did lead into situations where I had so much anger. So I would end up doing things like punching a wall and really hurting my hand, or grabbing a mug in the kitchen and literally just smashing it on the floor. I think I did that with a plate too, and like very disproportionate anger as well to the surroundings and the situation. I've never experienced it, and it was something I felt like I couldn't control. I say it like it was a regular thing. It obviously wasn't. It happened a few times, but it's so out of character for me, anyone that knows me, to, you know, go into the kitchen and actually damage something, even if it is just a cup or a plate. It doesn't hold much significance to you, or to me. It didn't, those ones I smashed anyway, but it was just very, never felt like that before, that I've had rage or anger that I couldn't control. How did I manage the pain? What was the outcome of that? Am I still taking something for the pain? So, honest answer is no, I'm not taking anything for that pain I was experiencing. The pain has completely gone away, which I didn't mention in that other sit down video. When I start, there's a fucking plane. See, that makes me want to use again. I resiliently persisted with this one therapy, which has been really shown to help release. And again, I firmly believed, after all the medical tests that I've had, which was every single one under the sun, every kind of blood test, every kind of scan, every kind of ultrasound, like everything said there was nothing wrong with me, said that I shouldn't be in that amount of pain, and it was coming from nerves, but you know, like, it was just beyond anyone, which is again why I was self-medicating so heavily. So I knew deeper down anyway that it was coming from trapped trauma. And one of the therapies that has been, and again, this is me, I hope everyone, well, I say I hope everyone hears this, I hope everyone that watches this video really pays attention to this one point, especially if you're someone that struggles with, if you have any kind of past trauma, if you're struggling with any kind of pain, physical pain that can't be diagnosed, or even if it can be diagnosed, if you're struggling with chronic pain, if you're struggling with addiction, if you're struggling with anything emotionally or physically, I would recommend go and get EMDR therapy. I don't know exactly what it fully stands for. I do know, but I've forgotten. Jill would know, but I can't be bothered to go and drag her in here and tell you. So I'm going to write it on the screen what it fully stands for. A lot more practitioners are using this for people that have experienced trauma and have chronic pain, and it has had amazing results. At first I was extremely skeptical, because I was, you know, like, I was kind of like, you know, I've tried everything. Are you honestly telling me that thinking about certain images whilst someone is tapping, it's like bilateral tapping, you can do it here, you can do it, you know, you can do it on yourself. It's kind of like you close your eyes, you imagine a very traumatic experience from your life. It can be very dangerous if it's not done in the right setting. You have to have a safe vault that you can go to. You have to be able to say stop to your practitioner. It has to be done with a professional, because it's very, if you're someone that's very traumatized, if you're someone that has a lot of that trapped in your body, it can be overwhelming and dangerous. So you have to do it with someone that is absolutely professionally trained in it. After the first session I have, it moved so much within my body that I couldn't walk. Like, I literally felt like I was drunk. I mean, I'm not a drinker, but I assume that's what being drunk or hungover maybe feels like. I've never had a hangover, I don't know what it feels like. Couldn't even walk. I mean, I got up to walk and I walked like head first into a door, literally face first into a door, fell over a chair, was just falling over the whole day. My body was almost telling me, you need to go and lie down, let this integrate, because so much has just been moved within you, in your body. And for me, that was a very good sign, because I think if I would have had that first session, especially as someone that is skeptical and impatient, and it didn't like really have a powerful effect on me, I probably would have given up on it. And I can only put my pain remission down to this EMDR therapy, which again has been shown to be amazing at helping with chronic pain and releasing trauma and depression, anxiety, all of that. And I just wish more people knew about it, which is why I'm dedicating a big part of this video to talking about it. To know that there were no other variables, there was nothing else that had changed. My diet had not changed, my lifestyle had not changed, medication had not changed. I wasn't doing any other therapies that would have that kind of effect on me. It's changed my life, and I'm gonna continue to go with the therapy for another few months, because I still feel like I still have so much more to bring up and to process and to work on. Can prescription medications be addictive or cause addiction? My answer is yes, absolutely. I know this is probably something that's going to be debated by medical people. I really don't give a fuck, because I know for a fact that all of the ones that I've taken that have been prescribed have been absolutely addictive. You know, in my opinion, and really with common sense, anything that alters the way that your brain chemistry works, anything that unnaturally alters the way that you feel, is addictive, right? Because if you get dependent on feeling a certain way to cope every single day through an artificial substance, don't get me wrong, I'm not all, or everything has to be natural and from the fucking rainforest and all that. No, like, need to burp, hold on. I'm not even gonna edit that out. It can take your brain months to rewire and to start producing it, you know, those things by itself again. It's the same with certain antidepressants as well. I'm not gonna say it's all medications, but in my opinion, it's just anything that alters the way that you feel. Number one, it's a blanket. If you're taking an SSRI, if you're taking an SSRI, you know, no one is born with serotonin deficiency. No one. Perhaps if your mother was a drug abuser and then you grew up with that environment in the womb, and you were born addicted to something, which is actually possible. You know, babies can be born say if the mother was a heroin addict, they can be born addicted to heroin. So therefore, you know, when we're talking those extreme situations, perhaps yes. But in 99% of situations, people are not just born or genetically, you know, like, given a serotonin deficiency. That's not a thing. I mean, serotonin deficiency can be a thing, but it comes from trauma or, you know, other ways that you might have abused your body, perhaps the way you're eating, lifestyle things. So when you take things to unnaturally raise that and then come off them, if you haven't done the work in the meantime to address the root cause of why you were depressed in the first place, you're back to square one. It's just a plaster effect. So again, I'm not against antidepressants. They saved my life at one point as well. But it's not a long-term solution in my opinion. And yes, anything that alters the way that you feel can and will be addictive, including tahini. And what was rehab really like? I can honestly say, like I briefly said in my last video, best and worst experience of my life. But the thing I think most people don't realize is they kind of think of rehab like jail. It's not like that at all, especially if you think that really the only kind of people that can get help in this country anyway are people that are high functioning addicts, because again, you need the money to pay for it, which is why so many people end up dying with addiction or, you know, ending up homeless. So yeah, you aren't held there against your own will. Of course, you're highly encouraged to stay there throughout all the pain, anything that you go through, anything that you experience. You know, there are rules that you have to follow, like you can't just go out whenever you want, you have to be in the premises, you need to be monitored. There are definitely people that go, I would say this probably applies to much younger people who, I'm talking like if you're 18 to 21, 22, I don't know, whatever. If you're, you know, kind of there because your parents want you to be there, it's not that you really want to get better, but your parents have sent you there to try and get you better, then there's probably a high chance you're gonna not abide by the rules, fuck up, you know, somehow sneak off the premises, and you somehow, you know, I witnessed that too. And I can understand it. I can really understand people not being ready for that process of giving over complete control and really wanting to get better. You have to be at that place of wanting to get better. There was also a little gym where we could work out when we were allowed. I say when we were allowed because when you're detoxing like heavily from a substance, you know, obviously you're told not to exercise because it's dangerous. Did I break that rule 1 or 2 times? Yes. The specific rehab that I went to as well, I believe that every single member of staff, apart from the chef, most of the staff are former addicts. So, you know, there's so much understanding there as well of what we are going through when you're a patient there, that the people that we're working with have experienced what we were experiencing, have been through that and come out the other side and been sober for 10 or 20 or 30 years. It kind of makes you just trust them a lot more. I know it did for me anyway. If I was working with someone that had no experience with suffering with addiction themselves, it would not have had the same powerful impact that it did on me. Yeah, just being understood in itself is such a huge thing, right? And as an addict, you don't often feel that in everyday life. I know I've never felt it until I actually went into rehab. So yeah, again, like I said, the food wasn't that great. That kind of pissed me off. I didn't have tahini for the first 2 weeks. Didn't have nut butter like the majority of the time. As in, I did, because they put it in things, I think. And they would make me smoothie sometimes with it in, but I wasn't allowed to just sit there with a jar of peanut butter spooning, which is obviously like my favorite thing to do in life. So again, if you're at a place where they're working on the right things and they also understand that you as an adult, well, as a human, need balance to the experience as well, which also means some light-hearted time, you know, interacting with animals, going on activities. You know, we went shooting multiple times, which I don't know how wise that was to give a bunch of withdrawing addicts rifles, but we moved. So yeah, I'm sending you lots of love. Leave all your comments and questions down below, and subscribe if you haven't already. Instagram link down below where I'll connect with you a lot more, and I'll see you all in the next video. Laters. Bye.